Story 1. The Vanishing Keys. I don't really consider myself someone with an exciting life, but whenever people ask me for a scary story, this is the one that makes my hands shake even today. I was 16 at the time, living in a little beach town on the Jersey Shore. If you've ever been there after Labor Day, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say it feels wrong. The rides shut down, the funnel cake stands close, the crowds vanish. And what's left is just this endless wooden skeleton stretching out over the sand, creaking in the wind like something alive. Our house was a block away from the boardwalk, right off a street called Ocean View Drive. My parents still own it, and even though I don't live there anymore, I swear sometimes I can still smell the damp wood and salt air if I think about it hard enough. Back then, I was on my high school's track team, and I was obsessed with running. Early mornings or late nights, I'd lace up and jog the boardwalk just to clear my head. That night was no different, or at least it wasn't supposed to be. The air was crisp, the ocean roared faintly in the distance, and the only light came from those buzzing yellow lamps that flickered every so often, like they were struggling to stay alive. I had gone maybe 3 miles in when I heard something that made my stomach drop, a faint clink. I stopped, checked my pocket, empty. My keys, my house keys with our full address etched into the tag, were gone. I froze, staring at the gaps between the planks under my feet. Somewhere down there in the dark, my keys had slipped through. It sounds stupid now, but my first reaction wasn't fear. It was anger. My parents were the kind of people who double-locked everything and would have lost their minds if I came back without those keys. So against every instinct screaming at me to just walk away, I jumped off the side and crawled underneath the boardwalk. The smell hit me first, rotting seaweed mixed with old beer and rust, the kind of heavy, damp smell that clings to your clothes. My only light was the weak green glow from my watch, and every step I took sent trash and sand shifting under my sneakers. I crouched low, scanning the ground, until finally I spotted something metallic sticking out from the sand. My keys. Relief washed over me as I reached for them, but just as my fingers brushed the metal, a hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed my wrist. Cold, thin, fingernails sharp enough to dig into my skin. I screamed, instinct taking over, yanking back and kicking wildly at the shadows. My foot connected with something soft, and the grip loosened just enough for me to break free. I scrambled backward, clawing my way toward the open air above, my arms and legs scraping against the beams. When I pulled myself up onto the boardwalk, panting, shaking, I glanced back through the cracks, and I swear on my life I saw 2 pale eyes staring up at me. Not one pair. 2. I stood frozen on the planks, my chest heaving, my ankle throbbing where those nails had dug in. For a second I thought maybe I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks after the adrenaline of running. But then I heard it. The sound of something shifting below, not just movement, crawling. Slow, deliberate scraping noises against the wood, as if whatever was down there was following me from beneath the boardwalk. I bolted, my sneakers pounded against the wood, echoing in the emptiness. But no matter how fast I ran, the sound followed, always just a step behind, always right underneath. I made it about half a block before I stopped, gasping for air, and I thought maybe I'd lost it. Maybe I was safe. That's when I saw it, dangling between the cracks ahead of me, my shoelace. The one I knew had been tied tight just minutes before. It was hanging down from the planks, swaying lightly, like someone below was holding it out for me. My stomach dropped. I didn't even stop to think. I turned and sprinted the rest of the way home, faster than I'd ever run in my life. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. When I reached the house, I banged on the door until my dad opened it, furious, ready to chew me out for being out so late. But the second he saw my face and the bleeding scratches on my ankle, his expression shifted. He didn't even ask questions. He just pulled me inside and locked the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that cold hand on my skin again. I kept hearing the dragging under the floorboards like it had followed me all the way home. And in the morning, when I finally worked up the courage to go outside, something was waiting on the doormat. Not my keys, not a note. A shoelace. My shoelace. Boardwalk bathrooms are creepy enough in the daytime. Graffiti on the stalls, flickering fluorescent lights. the kind of smell you wish you could scrub off your skin. But at night, they feel like traps. I was 19 when it happened, down in Ocean City, Maryland. My friends and I had rented a cheap little beach house for a long weekend. That night, most of them had already stumbled home from drinking, but I was still buzzing, not ready for bed. I decided to walk the boardwalk to clear my head. It was close to 2 a.m. The rides were shut down, the games all dark, just the sound of waves crashing somewhere beyond the empty planks. That's when the urge hit me. I had to pee. Bad. The only bathroom in sight was one of those squat, cinder-block buildings tucked beneath the boardwalk. The single bulb above the door buzzed like it was about to burn out. I hesitated, but the pressure in my bladder left me no choice. Inside, the smell nearly made me gag. Bleach mixed with something foul, like the bleach wasn't a tea strong enough to kill whatever had soaked into the tile. I went to the farthest stall, closed the door and tried to get it over with. Then the door creaked open behind me. Footsteps echoed slowly against the tile. Heavy, deliberate. They weren't heading toward a stall. They were circling the room. At first I thought it was just another drunk tourist, but something about the rhythm of the footsteps made my skin crawl. Every few seconds, they stopped. Long pauses. No sound of breathing, no cough, no movement of clothes, just silence. I froze, listening. My heart pounded so loud it felt like whoever was out there had to hear it. Finally, the footsteps stopped just outside my stall door, and that's when the air changed. It felt heavier, like someone was pressing their weight against the door. I tried to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. My chest tightened. I thought maybe the lock was jammed. I shoved harder, nothing. That's when I realized it wasn't stuck. Someone was holding it shut. My pulse hammered in my ears as I pressed my shoulder into the stall door again. Nothing. Whoever was out there had both hands braced against it, and they were strong. I whispered, "Hey, cut it out." My voice cracked. No reply, just silence. Then, the footsteps started again. Only this time, they weren't walking away. They circled back, above me. I tilted my head up, dread flooding my veins. The faint hum of the flickering fluorescent light revealed it, a pair of pale fingers curling over the top of the stall door. Long, thin, nails chipped and dirty, scraping softly against the metal as if savoring the sound. My throat locked up. I stumbled backward until I was pressed against the toilet staring at those fingers, and then in one quick motion, they pulled back. Silence again. I tried the door one last time, slamming my shoulder into it as hard as I could. It flew open, sending me stumbling into the bathroom. The place was empty, every stall wide open. The entrance door slowly creaked shut behind me, though I hadn't touched it. That's when I heard it, shuffling. Not footsteps this time, shuffling coming from the stall at the very end. I bent down just slightly, trying to see beneath the door. Nothing. No feet. But then the stall door burst open, slamming into the partition with a metallic clang. Standing inside was a man. At least, I think it was a man. His skin was grey, waxy, stretched too tight over his face. His hair was patchy, wet, like he'd just climbed out of the ocean. And his smile, God, that smile, too wide, splitting his face as he leaned forward, whispering in a voice that didn't sound human. "You shouldn't be here." I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just bolted, shoving past the door so hard the handle nearly tore off. I didn't stop running until I was back under the glow of the boardwalk streetlights. When I finally looked back, panting, trembling, ready to throw up, the bathroom door was wide open. And I swear I could still hear that whisper carried on the ocean wind. There's something about boardwalk arcades that feels timeless. The smell of popcorn and old carpet, the blaring 8-bit music, the neon signs flickering overhead. It's all supposed to feel safe, comforting. But I learned that night it can feel like a trap, too. I was 17, working the late shift at a small arcade in Virginia Beach. My job was simple: hand out tokens, fix stuck machines, sweep up spilled soda. The place closed at midnight, but my boss always made me stay an extra half hour to lock up. That night, everything was normal at first. I swept, counted the register, and started shutting down the machines one row at a time. The place got quieter with every flick of a switch, the sounds of laughter and bells replaced by silence. By the time I was done, only the claw machine in the corner was still humming, its fluorescent bulb buzzing faintly. I was about to turn it off when I noticed something strange. The glass wasn't reflecting me. It should have been. I was standing right in front of it, but instead of my reflection, I saw the arcade behind me, except it wasn't the same. The games were all on, flashing brightly, and in the middle of the aisle stood a figure, tall, thin, completely still. My stomach turned ice cold. I spun around. Nothing there. The arcade was dark and empty, just like it should have been. I looked back at the claw machine, and my heart stopped. The figure was closer now. It was pressed right against the glass, its face obscured, like the reflection had fogged just around its head. Long fingers rested on the inside of the machine's glass, tapping once, tick, 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 like it wanted me to come closer. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. My legs wouldn't listen. Then, in one slow, jerking motion, the figure tilted its head sideways, and through the hum of the machine, I swear, I heard a sound that didn't come from any speaker. A voice, hoarse, low, from inside the glass. "Let me out." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a chair. My eyes stayed locked on the claw machine, on that warped reflection pressed against the glass. And then, just as suddenly, it was gone. The glass showed only me again, pale and shaking, my breath fogging faintly against it. I laughed nervously, trying to convince myself it was stress, or maybe I was just overtired. But then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The prizes inside the machine, the stuffed animals, the rubber balls, the cheap toys, they weren't where they'd been. They were all pushed to the very back of the case, piled against the rear wall like something had crawled out from under them. I dropped the keys. They clattered loud against the tile, echoing in the empty arcade. And that's when I heard it. From inside the machine, clink, like the claw had moved on its own. I bent down, my heart thundering. The claw was swinging slightly as if it had just dropped, and resting in the center of the prize pit was something that hadn't been there before. Not a toy, not a ball, a handprint. Small, pale, pressed deep into the dust at the bottom of the glass, as if someone or something had reached up from beneath. The buzzing overhead light flickered violently, plunging the arcade in and out of darkness. Each time it blinked, the reflection in the claw machine changed. First it was just me, then me, with something standing behind, then me again, then just the figure, alone. Pressed against the glass, its mouth opening wider and wider until it wasn't even a mouth anymore, just blackness. The buzzing stopped. The light went out completely, and in the dark I heard the glass shift, like something inside was finally trying to push its way through. The silence was unbearable. I stood frozen, every muscle in my body screaming to run, but my feet felt bolted to the sticky carpet. Then, crack. The glass of the claw machine splintered, just a hairline fracture. But it spread fast, crawling across the surface like a spider web. From the other side of the glass, that black void of a mouth widened. I grabbed the ring of keys and sprinted toward the exit, fumbling with the lock. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get the key into the slot. Behind me, the cracks grew louder, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. Finally, the lock gave and I threw the door open, stumbling out into the humid night air of the empty boardwalk. But when I turned back, the arcade was still lit. All of it. Every machine flashing, every game chiming, every bulb glowing like the place was alive again. And in the front window, reflected under the neon glow, I saw the claw machine. But this time, it wasn't me staring back. It was the figure, its face pressed against the glass, lips peeled back in a smile too wide for anything human. Its pale hand lifted slowly, deliberately, until its finger pointed straight at me. The lights in the arcade snapped off all at once, plunging it into blackness. I don't know how long I stood there, heart pounding in my throat, staring at the dark window. I only know one thing. I quit the next morning. But even now, years later, whenever I pass a claw machine, I don't look at the prizes. I look at the glass, just to make sure nothing's looking back. Most people don't even know that tunnels exist. They were built decades ago beneath the pier in Santa Cruz, Maintenance passages, storage rooms, spaces for pipes and electrical lines. Eventually the city sealed them up, but if you knew where to look, you could still find an entrance. I was 20, drunk and stupid when I decided to go looking. My friend Travis had heard a rumor. Kids would sneak down there on dares, but some never came back. We laughed it off, of course. Urban legends, that kind of thing. But standing there at midnight, beneath the pier with the tide slapping against the wooden stilts, that laughter didn't feel so funny anymore. We found the entrance behind a rusted metal gate. The lock had already been cut. The air that seeped out was damp and sour, like rot clinging to wet stone. Travis went first, his phone light cutting through the darkness. The narrow concrete hall stretched on forever, the ceiling dripping. Walls carved with graffiti that looked decades old. Some of it didn't even look like letters, just jagged shapes scratched deep into the cement. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became. The sound of the ocean faded, replaced by the echo of our footsteps. And then, faintly, something else. A drip, steady, rhythmic, but too loud to be water. "Probably pipes," Travis whispered, though his voice wavered. We turned a corner and found a heavy steel door. Scratched into it, clear as day, were the words, "Don't open, it follows." Travis laughed nervously. Man, this is so staged. But when he grabbed the handle, it was warm, like someone had just been holding it from the other side. I grabbed Travis's arm before he could pull. "Don't," I hissed. "Did you feel that? It's warm." He grinned nervously, shaking me off. "Probably a busted pipe or something. You're seriously buying into this?" But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He didn't believe himself either. The dripping sound grew louder, not a plink like water, a pat, wet, measured, like bare feet slapping against concrete. And it was getting closer. We both froze, staring at the steel door. The handle twitched, just once, like someone testing it from the other side. Travis whispered, "Maybe it's other kids messing with us." But then the sound changed. Drag, not footsteps anymore, something heavier, flesh against stone, nails scraping faintly. The steel door shuddered as if something massive had slammed into it, dust raining down from the ceiling. My chest locked up. Whatever was on the other side wasn't trying to open the door. It was trying to break it. The words scratched across the metal, "Don't open, it follows," suddenly looked less like a warning and more like a desperate plea. "Let's go," I whispered, tugging Travis back the way we came. But he just stood there, wide-eyed, his phone trembling in his hand. And that's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The graffiti on the walls, the jagged marks we passed earlier. They weren't random. They were arrows, all pointing toward the steel door. The steel door rattled again, harder. The hinges screamed. "Run," I begged, yanking at Travis's sleeve. But he wasn't listening. He was staring at the handle, his mouth half open, eyes glazed like he was hypnotized. The dripping, the dragging. It was right behind that door now. Then, click. Travis had turned the handle. I screamed, but it was too late. The door lurched inward, heavy and groaning, releasing a gush of hot, sour air that reeked of rot and seawater. My phone light flickered, barely cutting through the darkness beyond. At first, all I saw were wet footprints, small, bare, dozens of them, leading away from the blackness, into the tunnel with us. Then something moved in the dark, a shape too tall to stand upright, its limbs scraping the ceiling, joints bending wrong. I couldn't see its face, until it lowered itself, dragging long fingers across the concrete. The sound was deafening. Scrap! It didn't crawl out. It unfolded. And in that single beam of light, I saw its skin, slick, grey, like something that had been soaking underwater for too long. Its head cocked sideways, jerking like it didn't understand how to use its own body. Travis dropped his phone. The light spun across the floor, catching its mouth just as it opened. Too wide, too wet, rows of teeth glinting where there shouldn't have been any. I ran. I didn't look back. My own screams chased me down the tunnel, mixing with the sound of something else, something fast, slapping, dragging, following. I burst out onto the boardwalk, lungs burning, night air sharp in my throat. When I turned back, the tunnel gate was shut. No Travis, no sound, just the ocean rolling under the pier. I never went back. But sometimes, when the tide is low, I swear I hear it. That dragging, waiting beneath the pier.